Hey everyone, today's topic, we're going to dive a little bit more into the generals of the Civil War. Today's generals that we're going to discuss is Jeb Stewart as well as Stonewall Jackson. If you guys are not familiar, it was Stonewall Jackson that was actually assigned by Robert E. Lee to gather 3 regiments. At the same time he was doing all that, he actually gave Jeb Stewart his first position as the commander of the cavalry at Harper's Ferry, where he eventually just fell into more roles with the Civil War and the battles that took place, especially up there in Pennsylvania in the small town of Gettysburg, where Jeb Stewart lost communication with Lee, which kind of ended up hurting Lee's tactics that he had planned with the Union. But he eventually was killed not far from his house or his home in Richmond on the Yellow Tavern battlefield. There's actually a monument out there in the exact spot where he was actually shot off his horse and eventually died of his injuries. I'm hoping that one day I can go out to Virginia and pay the respects to not only him, Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, and all the other great leaders that came about during the Civil War or even any other war in our American history. But before we dive into the today's lesson, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I do also want to say that we are up to 73 subscribers, so I appreciate that, you guys. I love all the support that I'm getting, the comments, all the fans coming on the fan page on the Facebook side. I know we can get to 100 subscribers. I have faith in my team. I have faith in my supporters. I know we can do it. Also, you guys, stay tuned for July 25th. I'll be down in Chelsea, Alabama, at the Historical Society down there. Met with the lady this past weekend, and we got everything set up. So I want to thank the Chelsea Historical Site, our Historical Society, as well as Jenny and her husband Bill for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to come and speak in front of everyone in Chelsea. So I'm looking forward to that. It's a big opportunity for us to grow as a channel and also let everybody know what we do here on this channel. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in and touch base a little bit on these Confederate generals and their adventures before, during, and after the Civil War. So the first one is James Earl Brown Stewart, known to his friends and fellow servicemen as Jeb, came from an Alcon military lineage. His great-grandfather, Major Alexander Stewart, commanded a regiment in the Revolutionary War, and his father, Archibald Stewart, fought in the War of 1812. Before serving as a Commonwealth and U.S. representative, he attended Emory and Henry College and then West Point, where he graduated 13th of 46 in 1854. West Point was also where he first met and befriended Robert E. Lee, and in his U.S. service, Stewart was involved in several Indian conflicts, the Bleeding Kansas incident at the Kansas-Missouri border, and was sent by Lee to crush John Brown's raid at Harper's Ferry. Stewart resigned from the United States Army in May of 1861 to join the Confederacy following Virginia's secession. Despite his father-in-law choosing to remain in the U.S. Army for the engagement, he was assigned to report to Thomas Stonewall Jackson, who promoted him to colonel early on and assigned him to command cavalry units of the Army of Shahadai. He led his regiment in the first battle of Bull Run, where the Union Army's early success was undone in part because of Stuart's routing, forcing their retreat back to Washington, D.C. Soon thereafter, he began commanding all the cavalry brigades for the Army of Northern Virginia in March of 1862. Stuart was a master of reconnaissance mission and twice made daring exploits, first in the Pensacola campaign and again at Antietam. In the Northern Virginia campaign, he was promoted to Major General after he executed successful raids at Cowlitz Station, Rappahannock River, and then performed great defensive strategy at the Battle of Fredericksburg. After the mortal wounding Jackson during the Battle of Chancellorsville, Stuart temporarily assumed command of Jackson's Second Corps and was influential in expediting the success of his predecessor famous flank attack. In spite of Stuart's brilliant reputation, or perhaps because of it, his performance during the Gettysburg campaign had been the subject of much debate and controversy. Prior to the 1863, the Federal Mountain Arm had been repeatedly embarrassed by Stuart's seemingly invincible cavalry, but as the war entered its third summer, that participation would begin to change. At Brandy Station, despite holding the field for the South, Stuart failed to detect the movements of the Union cavalry that would eventually instigate the attack. Just a month later, Stuart's cavalry fell out of touch with headquarters in the days leading up to Gettysburg and left Lee and his fellow commanding officers with little to no intelligence in an unfamiliar enemy territory. Stuart finally arrived late on the second day, and the following day was repulsed by Union cavalry, gaining no ground there. Stuart fought his final battle on the outskirts of Richmond on May 11, 1864. The Confederate cavalry was working feverishly to deny General Philip Sheridan's Federal horsemen from gaining entry into the Confederate capital. Stuart's men were able to check the Yankee advance but at a terrible cost. The Confederate cavalry chief was shot by a dismounted Michigan trooper with a pistol, and the wound proved fatal. He died the day after the battle, May 12, 1864, and was buried at Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond. Alright, you guys, so that is a little bit on Jeb Stewart. Now, like each and every video that I do of these generals, I'll give you guys a little bit more of other battles that they were involved in, as well as pictures of the general, growing up and eventually becoming the Confederate general, as well as some of the movements and other things that he was involved in during his time with the Confederate States of America and the Civil War. But I thought that the second one was very important general that we should be speaking of, because I believe that Jeb Stewart ultimately started his campaign and was able to come back as a general or a colonel because of Jonathan Stonewall Jackson had so much faith in him. He actually appointed him the commander of the cavalry at Harper's Ferry. So that was actually pretty cool. Now, if you guys have never seen the movie Gods in General, this picture of Stonewall and Jeb Stewart is actually painted very clear as of how he was able to appoint Jeb Stewart into the position of the commander. So if you guys ever have a chance of checking out that video, I would strongly recommend watching that video or even purchasing the video, because you can also see in the movie where Stonewall Jackson was actually shot in the arm by one of his Confederates during the Battle of Wilderness. when they were out walking around at night. And eventually he had to have his arm amputated due to the injury, and then eventually he ended up catching pneumonia, which was the ultimate cause of his death. Now, from what I've been reading, is that he's always wanted to die on a Sunday, and he actually did pass away on a Sunday. There's actually a monument, or not really a monument, but like a little plaque outside the plantation in Lexington, Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. It was Lexington, Virginia, that the plantation is actually located at, that you can go and you can take a tour of it and actually get to see the bed that Stonewall Jackson actually passed away in. So I'm hoping that eventually I can go out there as well. Stonewall Jackson is one of my favorite generals of the Civil War, but there's many different ones. Just like the next video that I'll be creating, it's 2 Union generals that I'll be tackling. The 2 Union generals that actually came in mind is Joshua Chamberlain as well as George Meade. George Meade is the one that actually outbeat Robert E. Lee at the Battle of Gettysburg. So that's actually going to be a pretty cool video, I believe, as well as Joshua Chamberlain and how he became a mayor of the state of Maine after the Civil War, and I think he was in there for 4 years before his passing. So stay tuned for those videos as well. That's coming soon. Now, going back to Stonewall Jackson, Thomas Jonathan Stonewall Jackson was born on January 21st, 1824 in Clarksburg, Virginia. He graduated from West Point in 1846 and began his career in the artillery as a brevet second lieutenant. Jackson fought in the Mexican-American War from 1846 to 1848 and received brevet to the rank of major for his actions. Now, if you guys are not familiar with why he's called Stonewall, now going back to that movie, Gods in General, when they began their battle near Fredericksburg, he actually just stood still on his horse, and one of the soldiers on the battlefield actually had his men look up because he said, "Hey, look there, he's standing like a stone wall," and that's eventually how the nickname stuck with Jackson all through his life, because he never flinched in battle. So they always looked up to him as a stone wall. So that's actually a pretty cool way that he was named and given that nickname. I love those movies that I'm mentioning as well. I think I've watched them at least 15, 20 times, maybe more. But it feels like each time I watch it, I'm learning something more and more every time. And this, I think, watching that movie so many times actually gave me the inspiration to do Jeb Stewart as well as Stonewall Jackson and share their message and share their stories with you guys, because I know that everybody enjoys these regiment videos, these general videos, because I believe that it's good to be able to get out there and just kind of see where these men came from, what they were doing up until the battle. As you can see, many of these generals, each of them actually fought in the Mexican-American War. Most of them all graduated from West Point, so it's kind of crazy how they were facing one another on opposite sides come the Civil War. So it's different, and it's a little crazy to know that you're going to be going against maybe one of the colleagues that you actually graduated at West Point with. So it's interesting to read their bios and see how their life was up till the Civil War, and also what they did after the Civil War. That's always interesting. Unfortunately, Stonewall never got to make it past the Civil War. due to the sickness that he actually ended up catching. But in 1852, Jackson resigned his military commission and accepted a teaching position at Virginia Military Institute in Lexington, Virginia. His style as a professor was controversial, but nevertheless invaluable, as VMI continues to use many of his philosophies today. At the beginning of the Civil War, Jackson accepted orders as a colonel of Virginia militia and commanded a Confederate garrison at Harper's Ferry, and promoted to brigadier general. Jackson led a brigade at the Battle of First Manassas, where he earned his nickname Stonewall. In November 1861, Jackson was promoted to Major General and dispatched to the Shenandoah Valley. The following spring, Jackson conducted a campaign in the valley that ultimately defeated 3 different Union forces and brought him international fame. He then transferred his command to Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia at Richmond. Jackson fought in the 7 Days Battle, which secured the Confederate capital from an advancing Union army under Major General George B. McClellan. During the Second Manassas campaign, Lee utilized Jackson's regiment in a flanking maneuver that helped bring the defeat of Major General John Pope's Army of Virginia. Jackson fought in the Maryland campaign in the fall of 1862 and was promoted to lieutenant general. Jackson fought at Fredericksburg in December, and on May 2nd, 1863, he executed a devastating flank march and assault at the Battle of Chancellorsville. That evening, while returning from a reconnaissance, Jackson was mistakenly fired on by his own men and wounded. He died on May 10th at the plantation of Thomas Chandler at Ginnen Station of Ammonia, and is buried in Lexington, Virginia. Alright, you guys, so that is a little bit about Stonewall Jackson as well as Jeb Stewart. I hope that you guys are going to enjoy these videos. I hope that you guys enjoy the regiment videos as well. Make sure you guys mark that calendar as well for July 25th, as I'm going to be out there sharing my story and my journeys, as well as thanking all my supporters. And I'll be uploading that video as soon as I come back from my trip, so you guys can comment on that video, watch the video, even smash the like button. But once again, I just want to say I want to say thank you to all my supporters out there. I love you guys so much. Let's keep going forward, you guys. Let's reach that 100 subscriber mark, and then it's just uphill from there. But with that being said, love you guys, and talk to you guys again soon.